So now we're going to be talking about positive feedback, including the productions of estrogen and oxytocin and other hormones. So the hormones that I mentioned before, oxytocin and estrogen, along with progesterone and prostaglandin, are chemical regulators of the birthing process. Oxytocin is a hormone that is produced in the hypothalamus and is secreted by the pituitary gland within the brain. Oxytocin is released during sex, childbirth, and lactation to aid reproductive functions. Oxytocin is typically known as the happy hormone due to its presence in romantic relationships, especially early on, and to its effects on anti anxiety and romantic attachment and empathy. And, and, and also, oxytocin appears to play a parent role in protecting the intestine from damage, which is a potential use in treatment for irritable bowel disease. It's overall, it's a hormone that not only has its effects within the reproductive cycle and the psychological effects, but it also has effects within the digestive system as well, which proves how hormones have more than one function within itself. And then next we have estrogen. Estrogen is produced in the adrenal glands, which are located above the kidneys, and is responsible for the development of physical characteristics of females during puberty, such as the growth of the breasts, the growth of pubic and underarm hair, and it also signifies the start of menstrual cycles. And not only that, but it also controls cholesterol levels in both men and women, and it helps protect bone health, and it affects your brain, heart, skin, and other tissues. And now we're moving on to progesterone. And progesterone, it causes the endometrium to secrete special proteins during the second half of the menstrual cycle, preparing it to receive and nourish an implanted fertilized egg. But if the egg is not fertilized, progesterone and estrogen levels will drop, and then the endometrium breaks down and the menstrual cycle will continue. But if a pregnancy does occur, progesterone is produced in the placenta, and levels remain elevated throughout the pregnancy. And the combination of high estrogen and progesterone working together suppresses further ovulation during pregnancy so that there is a lack of complications. And progesterone also encourages the growth of milk producing glands in the breast during pregnancy. And lastly, but not least, we've got prostaglandin, which is made due to a chemical reaction at the site where it is needed, and can be made in nearly all the organs in the body. Prostaglandins are part of the body's way of dealing with injury and illness. And prostaglandins are known to regulate the female reproductive system and are involved in the control of ovulation, menstrual cycle, and the induction of labor. And like prostaglandin is what they will inject into women when labor is to be induced. So to help you remember that tangent that I just went on about hormones, I've created a little acronym for you guys. So to help you remember this, know that oxytocin helps with contractions, estrogen helps with the development, progesterone helps with nutrition, and prostaglandin helps with labor. So they'll be remember this. Remember OCODPNPL, oxytocin, contractions, estrogen development, progesterone, nutrition, prostaglandin, labor, or better known as our cats out to dogs peeing near Peter's lilies. Can you remember that? Say it 5 times fast. So now we're going to move on to actual childbirth itself and how the hormones play into that. And the process of childbirth is called parturition and occurs via positive feedback under hormonal control. Positive feedback involves a response that reinforces the change detected, and it functions to amplify the change. So, in the case of childbirth, fetal growth eventually causes the stretching of the uterine walls, which is detected by stretch receptors. So, when the baby becomes too big, it will send the uterine lining will send signals out to different hormonal secretion spots, and hence contraction will occur due to the stimulus. And the stress induces the release of chemicals which trigger a rise in levels of, in particular, estrogen. So when the placenta, as I'm showing here, grows to be stretches the walls, it'll produce estrogen. And estrogen prepares the smooth muscle of the uterus for hormonal stimulation by increasing its sensitivity to oxytocin. And estriol also inhibits progesterone, which was preventing uterine contractions from occurring while the fetus was developing. And now that the uterus is primed for childbirth, the brain, or the pituitary gland within the brain, triggers the release of oxytocin from the posterior pituitary gland. And oxytocin stimulates the uterine muscles to contract, initiating the birthing process. And it also inhibits the progesterone secretion because progesterone was blocking uterine contractions during this time. See, inhibits. And then finally, the fetus responds to the uterine contractions by releasing prostaglandins, by producing prostaglandins, which triggers the further uterine contractions. And then finally, as you can see, like as the uterine contractions trigger the release of chemicals that cause further contractions, a positive feedback loop ensues from it. So now we're going to talk about gestation, or the development of the fetus or the baby. So generally, there are two main factors that contribute to the length of gestation. One is animal size and mass. Typically, larger animals tend to have larger gestation periods. And then also the level of development at birth. More developed infants will typically require a longer gestation period. And a way to differentiate between the development of infants, we can use the words altricial and precocial. Altricial mammals give birth to relatively helpless and underdeveloped offspring that need extended rearing, such as puppies, or in the case of birds, we've got robins. As you can see, like the baby robins, they don't really move from their nest at all and rely on their parents entirely to rear them during the first few weeks of their lives. Then we also have precocial. Precocial mammals give birth to more developed offspring that are mobile, independent, and require minimal rearing, such as a baby elephant. Or to go back to comparing this to birds, we've got baby ducklings. Baby ducklings, as soon as they come from their eggs, they are able to walk around, and even though they are still dependent on their mother, like most animals, they are able to move and be independent in some way, shape, or form. So this leads us to this gestation, this graph of gestation period correlation. And this is just for body mass, but as you can see, it's from the data, it's a little bit scattered because sometimes it doesn't really sync up, but we can still produce a line of correlation throughout the set of data that, yes, indeed, larger body mass does lead to a longer gestation period within the animals themselves. And to conclude that, I've included a lot of pictures of some really cute baby animals that I hope you enjoy. So remember from this unit, larger body mass within an animal means longer gestation period. Also, altricial means that the infant is not able to care for itself during the beginning of its infancy, and precocial means that the infant needs minimal rearing during its infancy.